Happy Monday, everybody. You are watching Local on 2. The weekend is never long enough, but we hope you enjoyed your weekend and you're gearing up for a fun week. We are going to help kickstart it off on a good note. I'm Larissa Wall.
And I am Laura Schweizer. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a packed house on the show today, so let's get right to it.
Yes, we've got some great guests and some returning guests who we adore. We are welcoming back our first guest, Tim Ghianni, a renowned music journalist and author of the captivating book Pilgrims, Pickers, and Honky-Tonk Heroes.
It's such a, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you very
for
much.
Joining us.
Very much, yes.
His book,
it's my pleasure.
It is our pleasure.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so his book details the best of Music City's history in a city that ever changes, as we know. So you talked to your friends, legends. What inspired you to write this book?
Oh, yeah, I want to say, this is not just, it's not about Tim Ghianni, but it's about the people that are in the book. And I actually decided that these people, most of them now are older or deceased. Most of them are deceased. But I wanted these people to be remembered. I'd been able to become their friends. I started out interviewing them for stories when I was working at newspapers. And then I decided during the pandemic, and I was actually done with most of my freelance work, to go ahead and tell the stories of these people as I had spent time with them. When I was at the newspapers, I did single stories, but then all of these people I spent more time with. And so that's the stories that are here. And they were just a group of, like I said, it's Tim Ghianni's friends. That's who these people are. So.
Oh, I love it. And I mean, 34 years in the industry, working with musicians and seeing Nashville. And you were in the midst of it at such a crucial and amazing time for music. And you've seen Nashville change, I'm sure, in many ways. Tell us some of the stories that are in here. I know there's one about a brick that is amazing.
We might as well start with a brick one, because that's the entry point to the story. That's the night I fell in love with Nashville. It was in the summer of 1972. I was downtown in Lower Broadway. It was really a seedy area. There were 4 or 5 bars, peep shows. There were prostitutes working down there. There was where the Merchants restaurant is now, there was Merchants Hotel, which was kind of a flop house. And Line Bars had a restaurant down there that was open, I think, all night. But it was really a seedy area, but I really liked it down there. And I would go down there and go to the bars where sometimes opera performers would be singing, because it was down there at the Ryman full time then. But the night that I fell in love with Nashville, I'd read in the Nashville Banner, that's the former paper, one of the former papers here in Nashville, that the city was going to start paving over all the brick and cobblestone streets in Lower Broadway and in the adjoining streets, 4th, 5th, 6th, et cetera. And I thought, well, these bricks were important. Hank walked over them, Cash walked over them. So I decided, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, so I had some help in my decision, but I decided that I was going to take some of these bricks to save them. And so as I'm saving the bricks, and they were loose, they were going to pave over them the next day. So I was just putting them in my trunk, and then a couple of fellas came out of the darkness, and they said, "What are you up to, man?" or something to that extent. And I said, "Well, I'm saving bricks." And they said, well, they thought that was a really good idea. So they started loosening up bricks and putting them in my trunk with me. And it turned out to be Bobby Bear and Shel Silverstein, which Bear remains one of my best friends. He's a wonderful man. I could consider him the best all-time country artist, but he remains a close friend. Shel is deceased now, but Shel wrote a lot of songs for Bobby Bear. And in fact, there's a classic Lullabies, Legends, and Lies album that they did. But Shel's biggest song actually was a Cash song, was A Boy Named Sue. He wrote that song. But anyway, these guys, they loaded up bricks for me, and then they left. They were headed to Tootsie's to see some friends. And so I drove home, but as I'm down there, and I'd been down there a lot, and I saw these guys, a famous musician, famous author, songwriter, going back over to Tootsie's. I looked around, you saw Nashville, you could see everything. You see the Capitol building. Wow. You could see the LNC Tower, and that's about it that you could really see. It was a low-slung, as I refer to it, was a low-slung city. But I really loved that city so much, and that's really where I said, this is where I'm going to, this is my town. And of course, it has changed tremendously.
Oh, yes. But it's people like you and it's books like this that are bringing it to life in such an amazing way for all the people coming to the city.
Yes, you really have a first-hand account. I mean, for people out there who want to know personal stories, you know, with Johnny Cash's family, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, you have it all. Thank you so much,
you.
Tim. I could talk to you for hours.
Well, Chris, you mentioned Chris. He's also, I know we're probably about done here, but Chris became a close friend of mine, and I was a fan of his when I was a kid, when I was in high school. And so I actually took him, in 2003, I took him down to Music Row for the first time. He'd been there in 30 years in the daytime, and he was recollecting what had been there. And his feeling after we'd been there, we walked through, looked at everything. His son, Johnny, named for Johnny Cash, was with us, and Chris, at the end of it, Johnny was doing a program for his high school, but Chris, at the end of it, basically, he said, "Man, I wish the old stuff was still here."
Oh, yeah, I get that.
You have a way of writing, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, here's another look at the book. Pick up Pilgrims, Pickers, and Honky-Tonk Heroes on store shelves today. Thank you again, Tim.
Thank you so much.